How much do you think of a student of jazz do you have to be? And does that correlate to how good of a player you are?
Certainly, yeah, being a student of jazz does correlate, I think, to how good a player you are. I think, all of the really good players I know are all students of the music and have studied every kind of facet of it, maybe different facets, but a lot of different areas. And I think, in a way, it helps, and this is always the little catch-22 with jazz, is that the audience has to be a little bit of a student as well. Just a little bit. It helps to know maybe a bit of the traditions, a bit of the lineage, why one person sounds the way he does and what came before that and what makes him so amazing because he's taken it to some other place or level. That also combined with just maybe a knowledge about forms, musical forms, so that when you hear, for instance, a jazz musician improvising, there's some understanding about what's going on.
What he's doing,
he's not just standing up there, making a bunch of sounds, but there's actually a logic and an intelligence behind it. So yes to both.
Great. Can we talk about the Brecker brothers?
Sure.
The success and how did the Brecker brothers get started?
It started, well, my brother and I, again, had been playing together for years. We were playing in a group called Dreams, many other groups. We played, we recorded with Dreams. We then joined Horace Silver together again, and then played for a year with Billy Cobham in Spectrum, and made a number of records with him. And during that time, we used to record a lot in the city. We toured, and we also made a lot of jam sessions. I always used to show up. There was a kind of a loft scene in New York where there was a lot of music being played. We all lived in lofts because we could make, a loft is an abandoned factory sort of made livable. And they were large, habitable places where you could make a lot of noise and not bother neighbors.
It's too bad you didn't invest in 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Who knew? But during this period, my brother Randy had been writing some really brilliant compositions, and we had been playing them every week at our friend Don Grolnick's, a wonderful pianist, at his house. We'd get together with my brother and myself, Dave Sanborn, just for fun and play these tunes. And we were approached by Arista Records and Clive Davis to make a record for them. Clive had just started Arista Records and had signed Barry Manilow, and he signed us. And that was the beginning of the Brecker
Pretty
Brothers.
good company.
Yeah, it was. Barry Manilow had a hit right from the beginning. Had a hit record called Mandy, which got the whole record company really started. And my brother and I were really fortunate to kind of be in the right place at the right time. And he had also written some, unbelievably creative and interesting music that was kind of like jazz funk, but really different from anything that had been recorded, but anything different from anything I had ever heard.
Absolutely. I mean, you were very innovative at that time, quite different.
So I started trying to learn how to write, kind of, because I realized I better contribute something to this. I felt bad that I hadn't written anything after that first record, because I realized we were going to make more records.
Right.
So I started trying to write kind of in my brother Randy's, kind of in that genre. Kind of difficult thing to do. I try to write on a regular basis. It's difficult when traveling, unless I have some time in one place. And often deadlines help,
Right.
But I still, even without a deadline, I still try and keep my, my hands in writing. I write when I'm home, and I have gotten to the point where I sort of enjoy the experience of writing. I don't always come up with something, but I get very excited when something comes out that I like.
Which is better for you, to actually sit down and write note by note, or improvisation?
Both. There are different ways of writing. And it's funny that you would ask that, because that is one approach. Sometimes I'll just play the saxophone and record it, and then kind of glean.
Edit it down.
Yeah, here, I might record for 20 minutes and then find a couple of phrases that attract my ear, and then I'll, find a way to harmonize them and come up with and start moving it around. That's an interesting way to write. And there are other ways, such as just sitting at the piano, which is the more common way for me.
What does recording in the studio do for you versus being out on the road and touring and playing with other musicians in a band? Or
Very different experience, a different way of thinking, even though a lot of the same tools are used, a lot of the same crafts come into being, or come into play. But the studio, in a way, can often be a more constricted format. There's no audience, and
Right.
often you're separated. Depending on how you set up, you can be separated from other musicians and only kind of see them and hear them through earphones. Nevertheless, it brings out a kind of degree of concentration and accuracy, and an approach to the music that's very different from the live experience. And you can really have a good time in the studio. You know, the studio becomes another instrument unto itself and allows you to do things that you can't do live. You know, particularly using tools such as editing, et cetera, et cetera.
right. How do you prepare for performances, Michael?
It depends on the type of performance, but I'll hopefully have the music in my hands and at least look at it. If it's really difficult, I'll practice it. Sometimes I'll have a CD or something and practice with it. I'm constantly practicing the instrument anyway. But beyond that, if it's my own concert, I'll think about what we're going to play, what order we're going to play the tunes, and how we're going to deliver it, how it's going to be paced, and just in a loose way, And beyond that, the rest of it's created pretty spontaneously.
So
and
there's
that's
not a
the
lot of
beauty
rehearsal.
of it. Rehearsal. I forgot about that.
Rehearsals, sound checks.
There's sound checks. There's not a lot of rehearsals.
Right.
I do rehearse, maybe one day, occasionally. If it's a lot of new music, maybe 2 days.